Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Don Rick DeCastro, and you are turning in to the What's in Your Case podcast. Our guest today is a full-time multimedia artist whose passion for creating fantastical, colorful works of art to combat minimalist beige. Someone I am confident to say is big into spooky and silly things. My guest today, Tianna, or as they're known, Mal.Inky.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So where does the name Mal.Inky come from?
Yeah, that's really funny. A lot of people ask me that question. There's really not like anything super deep about it. My middle name is Malia, and for years now, I try to use my middle name in my like handles for like Instagram and such. So I wanted something that was similar to that, but also encapsulates art. So that's where Mal.Inky came from.
And it's safe to assume that autumn, or specifically the spookier season, is your favorite time of year?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I hate the hotness of summer, especially Sacramento heat. It's pretty brutal. And also winter kind of makes me a little sad because it's dark all the time. So autumn feels like the most perfect non-allergy season. And also all of the amazing media that comes with autumn. It's just amazing.
And then some of the things that I've noticed that you like to sell come from different kinds of fandoms. I know Over the Garden Wall is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Gravity Falls is another one. What are some other fandoms that you could consider yourself part of?
Such a good question. I would say I most recently have been intaking a lot of like Baldur's Gate and Arcane stuff. I've been wanting to get more into video games. I haven't played League, but that's like Arcane is adjacent. I would say I really like a lot of fandoms that have a really rich backstory to it, and so those have definitely been my current ones. In the past, I definitely love a lot of Studio Ghibli stuff. Anything that has to do with those, just amazing. It's been a lot of Baldur's Gate recently, to be honest.
Were you ever part of the Super Hulock?
No, I actually never watched that show. It's kind of sad to say. I don't know. Sad. Now there's like tons of things I could watch. I didn't watch a lot of like movies and TV growing up. It was a lot of reading. So that's where I think most of my influence comes through. And then now that I'm like, oh, I have TV and laptops and stuff, I can actually, and time to do all this. It's been a bit more of watching all of the amazing shows. I just started watching Buffy, almost done with Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
2019, you had designed the poster for the Whole Earth Festival.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with that?
So I went to Davis for undergrad. I didn't do a whole lot of art or anything related to art when I first started college. And I found Whole Earth Festival, I want to say freshman year, I submitted some art to their art space. And that was amazing, a really great experience. And then the next year, I saw that there was a ad for like running the art space for Whole Earth. And that sounded really cool and a great opportunity. And I ended up doing that. And through my 4 years, or I think it's actually like 5.25 at Davis, I got more and more involved into Whole Earth. So then by 2019, I was director, and we just had the like most perfect theme of Funk Up the System. And every year Whole Earth does a poster design for that theme. And I just thought of like the perfect design. So it's probably one of my most favorite designs I've ever done. And I still sometimes feel like I won't ever top that. But really great memory. And I love Whole Earth and everything that has to come with that.
And then March 6th of 2020, you made an announcement saying that you're going to be selling prints and stickers on Depop and Etsy.
Yeah, that was so long ago.
I believe the first product for sale was a print of At Britney Makeup, and as well as the Space Cow sticker and Galactic Rat sticker.
Yeah, that's so funny. Such a long time ago to think about. I like started where I think a lot of artists start, where they were doing portrait. That was the thing you had to do to be like a top tier artist, was do like hyper realistic portraits. And I still have like space and love for that. And then with now, I've kind of gotten back into portraits, but I think there was like a war with myself of like, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's what people want to see. And then the funny, cute animals that I wanted to do. But yeah, it's so funny. So long ago.
March 6th, that was right before the pandemic had started.
Mm-hmm.
March 22nd, 2020, you posted, quote, skip the news and watch cartoons. That's when you said that you had watched Over the Garden Wall to get you through the quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
I think you said you were about 16 watch-throughs at that point. How many times now do you think you've watched through the entirety of Over the Garden Wall?
Oh my gosh, probably so many. I do it like as many people who watch that show do. It's like a yearly watch at the very least every October. But I also sometimes like to just have it running on in the background. It's just great music, great vibes, and the soundtrack. If it's not the actual show, then it's a soundtrack. So it's probably uncountable. At this point.
During this post, you also showed off one of your carved stamps to make block prints.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell us a bit what the process like is creating a stamp for block printing?
Yeah, I was pretty low budget, and I think that's the beauty of block printing is it's like pretty accessible. Like you could even do it on rubber erasers if you want. But I would get a rubber block. I hadn't never really gotten into like real linoleum, or if you're like crazy high production, you can do it on wood. And I don't recommend this, but I would just draw directly. Some people like to just sketch out their design first and then transfer it, but I was always a little too hasty and didn't want to prepare that much, and so I would just draw it directly onto the rubber stamp, and you have this little carving tool to carefully carve around kind of the negative space of the block and save just what you'll be inking. And I would get like pretty cheap ink, roll it onto it, and then press it onto some nice paper. That was where I like splurged, was the paper, because I always love a good weighted textured paper. Then you had a block print, and it's always pretty fun. I recommend anybody to try doing it. It's pretty accessible.
And do you still use block printing in your art today?
I would say that I have kind of pulled away. For me personally, it was hard to deal with the unpredictability of it. I'm kind of somewhat of a perfectionist, which might mean that I should go back to it and it might be good for me. I gave away a lot of my block printing materials to friends so they could try it out. But I do think some of the elements of it still hold true into my art practice. It's very like no nonsense. I feel like with block printing, you like take away the color it's just like an image, and that's really important to me, to just like capture something on its own without really background or just like a striking image. So yeah, while I don't block print currently, I think the elements still have it in the back of my mind.
December 24th, 2021, you said, I will only be painting fish from now on, thank you. You posted a painting of a salmon that you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Obviously, this was a joke.
Yeah.
Because you've expanded past only painting fish.
That's so funny. Yeah. That was a gift, a Christmas gift for a coworker of mine. And, you know, I have painted a couple of fish since then. I haven't ever posted them, which is pretty funny. I painted them on canvas and just like taken them to markets, and everybody seems to really love fish. Well, especially in Davis. Like there are some crazy, amazing fish people in Davis. But bringing that up really makes me think that I should paint more fish. They were quite fun.
And then that style of painting, is it pronounced gouache?
I say gouache. I'm honestly,
Gouache?
not too sure on the correct pronunciation. I've heard it both ways.
Now, what sets gouache painting, what makes it different from other styles? Let's say against water painting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So gouache, I like to describe it as kind of a medium that's in between watercolor and acrylic. So you can use it like watercolor, where you can add a bunch and thin it down and make it very transparent. Or you can use it as it comes, like acrylic, and it could be very opaque and buildable. And I find that ability to go in between those two states makes it a lot easier. Watercolor for me is quite difficult because it involves a lot of pre-planning, which I'm not very good at. You're like, you should plan where you're going to set the colors because once it's there, you really can't do much with it. And acrylic doesn't feel as blendable to me. And gouache is so fluid that I like the way that it layers on top of each other, and I could thin it down, make it more opaque, and I think it has just a really amazing effect with the colors that lay down. And I think this holds true. I've heard somebody say this, and I believe it to be the case, that cheap gouache is actually pretty good gouache, whereas cheap acrylic and cheap watercolor can maybe not so be that great to work with. So the accessibility is also like important to me, and that's what I really love, especially because I go through so much art supplies at once, you know?
And it seems you really liked gouache painting because January 14th, 2022, you did a painting of what you said was something you loved most in this world. Do you remember what that was?
No, I don't. I have a pretty bad memory. I love all of this coming back to me though as you're saying it.
It was a gouache painting of dim sum.
Oh my god, yeah! I still have the original of that somewhere, I think in one of my old portfolios. I keep meaning to take it out and frame it. Yeah, that was one of the like earliest gouache paintings that I did. I remember getting like a gift card to Michael's or something around my birthday one year, and buying a gouache palette and that being one of the very first things that I did, which is really sweet. Shout out to my friend who bought me that gift card because I probably wouldn't be where I am now without it. Just like on a whim trying it. But yeah, love dim sum. Love that so much.
Has your feelings about dim sum changed since 2022?
Oh no, definitely not. Yeah, me and my family, any big occasion, that was always the go-to place, any dim sum restaurant in the area, which kind of sucks because I think over the years our go-to places have like closed, but a new one always pops up. It's still very important. I love it.
All right, and then the next question is just for me, so listeners, divert your ears for a moment. Where's like the best place to get dim sum?
Okay, so I would say there's a really good place in Davis. Gosh, what is it called? Again, I have such a bad memory. There's like a Chinese restaurant connected to a gas station, and it's like right next to, that's also a really good place. And I don't know if they're connected. They're very close and near to each other, and their names are very similar. So maybe they're by the same owners. I have no idea. Yeah, there's a restaurant in Davis that I think is really good. I'm not sure if there's more than one dim sum restaurant, so maybe if you look that up, you'll be able to find it. In Sacramento, we used to go to one, but I think they closed, so that's no good. There's also a really good place in Natomas. Again, don't know the name of it. I feel like that's kind of how I am with a lot of like Asian restaurants. No idea the name, but you know, just in Natomas, there's a really good dim sum place that I would recommend going to. And I'm sure you could Google that and also find, I don't know if there's many places in Natomas.
All right, let's get back to it. January 3rd, 2022, that was the first time you had mentioned the Davis Street Market on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
That was at your first market that you vended at?
Yeah, it was. I think I was nearing the end of my time at college, and one of my roommates, I don't know if the art market started around then, but one of my roommates was like, hey, there's this free, low-key, easy market to go to, and she didn't want to go alone. I didn't really do much art at that point. During college, I was just not really focused on that. So I was like, I guess I have like a few things to do. And I think that's where the Space Cow and Galactic Rat came in, where I was like, okay, I could make these like little doodles that I did into stickers and print out some prints. We ended up going, and it was such a great time. I think it really is still such a great market to go to if you just want to try something out and get a little bit more confidence with that kind of stuff, because it can be pretty daunting to start and put yourself out there. But yeah, a lot of love for the Davis Art Market. They're amazing.
And then what did you expect going in to your first time vending? Or what didn't you expect from your first experience vending?
In almost a contrasting way, I didn't expect how amazing it would be, like how uplifting it can be. But I also didn't really expect how, like, not bad, but like, it really is scary putting yourself out there. And there is like vending and you're sitting there. There are definitely moments of just like, oh my God, what am I doing? And oh my God, does everybody hate me or hate my art or why am I doing this? But then you get moments of, wow, this is so great. And you're like connecting with people and talking about your art, and being in that motion is really great. So it definitely is a interesting experience for sure that I didn't really expect going in to have such highs and lows, I guess.
January 9th, 2022, you had a post that your stickers and prints were set up in a plant shop.
Mm-hmm.
It was at mother.ahpb. I went to click the link, but the account didn't come up. Did that store close?
Yeah, they did. I used to work at a plant store for a couple of years. Sadly, they did close, but they were located in Dixon. That was the first store that I ever had my art in. So, yeah, it's so sad that they closed.
And then how did that partnership work? Was it just because you worked there, or when you approach stores to put in your art to sell there, how do you approach them?
So for there, they did have a lot of, I think it was mostly consignment. Maybe they had a few wholesale vendors, which is different. Like consignment, normally stores take a percentage, and wholesale, they buy outright, usually at like a 50% markdown. So there were a lot of vendors there outside of them selling plants. And it was pretty easy to get in because I did work there and obviously was knew the owners and such. I think a lot of the local vendors in the area did vend there, which was really cute, getting to know them pre-vending and them being at the store. Any store usually does something like that, consignment or wholesale, and sometimes you do have to go in quite frequently to ask and push your product, which can be really daunting, I think. There are a lot of great areas and small businesses around that are putting more local products in their stores, which I think is really great.
And then what current shops do you currently have your art for sale in?
Currently, it's not too many. It is quite a lot of energy. I would definitely love, I think, one of my goals for this new year is to be in more stores. But right now, I think I'm just like focusing on having a good amount at the stores I already am currently, which is Avid & Co., which is a toy store in Davis. And I do still have some stuff in Secret Spot, which is also in Davis. So maybe a goal would be bringing something more out in Sacramento, which would be cool.
January 18th, 2022, you posted, and I quote, a couple of kitty portraits for some lovely friends.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the meme is true that when it comes to gift-giving holidays, the first instinct artists have is to pull out the art supplies to make a present?
Oh my God. Totally. Yes, for sure. I mean, I've tried to push past that like it's kind of impossible to make a gift, hand make a gift for like every family member, every friend. And I try to channel that now into buying from other small businesses and art creators. So like spread around the pool, I guess. But yeah, that definitely is such a real feeling.
And then the reason I bring up the kitty portraits is because March 4th, 2022, you painted two more cats, Cheeto and Toast, but this one was a commissioned piece.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still taking commissions?
Currently, I closed my books to focus on more personal projects, but I was doing them for a really long time. And it's funny because I was just scrolling through a lot of my Instagram posts and remembered all of the cute cats that I have been commissioned to paint, and I kind of miss that. Hopefully, like sometime in the future this year, when I feel a bit more like I have more spoons for that, I might go back.
And then what were some of your pros and cons for taking commissions?
Yeah, a really big con, which is why it started to feel a little overwhelming, which nobody ever made me feel this way. It was kind of all just in my head, was the just stress of this is an important, usually pet that somebody wants me to capture, so it has to be perfect. Like, there's little things, which I try to get as much detail as I can from somebody, like what are the little things that make your pet special or that you notice so that it could translate into what I'm creating. But that was just really stressful, and I was just fearing every time that when I sent it off, somebody looked at it and just told me it was great, but maybe they hated it, which wasn't founded on anything real. I think it was just all the stress in my head. And maybe I'm not super a commission artist, which is fine. Or maybe I just need to grow more and be a little bit more confident in my abilities. But the pro is, it's amazing that people see your work and puts that confidence in you that there's something important that they want recreated and that you can make that for them. It's really nice income to have. I know a lot of artists do make most of their income based on commissions, which is really amazing and cool.
June 20th, 2022, you made it to a big benchmark. That was when you hit 1,000 followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
How did it feel for you when you hit this benchmark?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Even a couple years later, just like getting a couple followers here and there feels so wild. What do you mean? People want to look at my art all the time. That's so wild. I've never really, to be honest, been much of a social media person. Even now, I still struggle to post, and the imposter syndrome of it all. Like, I've just never really put myself out there like that. So it was a really cool thing to happen.
Did you do anything to celebrate when you hit 1,000?
I know, like, online I did like a cute little giveaway just to express gratitude and stuff. Personally, I don't remember if I did anything. Probably just had a really nice, usually when I have like a good time or a rough time, which is kind of all the time, you know, life is built up of good times and rough times. I treat myself to dinner, like, or any other little treat to go out, you know, and have a nice meal.
August 19th, 2022, that was when you retired your first collection of stickers, the Space Cow sticker, Galactic Rat sticker, and Ethereal Otter sticker.
Mm-hmm.
As an artist, you're constantly growing and adding new products to your table, but at what point do you consider retiring a product?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I feel like personally, I kind of just go off on how I feel about a particular design. There is a little bit of two factors going into it. It's how do I still feel about it? Am I still excited to put it out there? And am I still excited to make it? Most of my stickers and prints I make completely myself. So sometimes with a sticker, because I'm printing it and cutting it, I'm just like, I'm sick of seeing this all the time. So I think it's time to retire it. And if I'm not excited about it, maybe it's time to let it rest. And then there's also the other side of it. If like, I feel like maybe it's like reached its capacity with who wants it, then maybe it's time to let it go. But there's wiggle room in that. Sometimes I'm still really excited and other people aren't. So I'll still keep it, or vice versa. I'm not super excited about it, but people still want it. So it'll still be there. And also just like the capacity at which I have, there's obviously a very limiting factor to like how much I'm able to make and put out on a table in physical space. So if I'm in a period of making a bunch of new designs, I will have to cut stuff that won't be able to be fit in the space. But usually I think because I have online stores, it's a lot easier. If I don't have it at the table, at the booth physically, it still might be online.
September 16th, 2022, for the Not Your Boyfriend market, you released a limited number of shirts that you block printed.
Mm-hmm.
I know recently you released the bleach painted shirts, but from what I can tell, since that block printing run of shirts, there was a big break between you releasing apparel, clothing, shirts, jackets. What are some factors that you think people need to consider before they start making apparel?
Yeah, apparel is pretty tough, to be honest. When I was doing the block printing stuff, I think I took a pause on block printing in general because I didn't like the inconsistency that I would get printing on clothes, which is pretty tough because the blanks and like the shirts and stuff that you would buy are pretty pricey. And if you just ruin a whole shirt, it's like, what do I do with it? Oh no. So that was pretty rough. And it's kind of block printing on shirts was a little rough on my body. I felt like it just took a lot to try to achieve that perfection with clothing. So that's why I like the bleach painting. It felt a bit more, the medium allowed me to make those mistakes, I guess, quote, mistakes, because it doesn't really look like mistakes when you throw a bunch of bleach on it and that's the vibe that you're going for. But when you're starting out with apparel, you gotta take into consideration sizing. That's pretty important to like have an inclusive sizing, but usually it's pretty costly when you buy clothes, you should buy it in bulk because the more you buy, the cheaper it is. But you never really know like what's going to sell, which designs, how much of each size would you need. There's a lot to take into consideration. And then there's like other stuff where like what's the wear and tear on the design you're doing? Like is my ink for the block printing going to hold up over time? Or like the bleach, will that wear through the fibers in the fabric and create holes? Let's make sure that we can minimize that. That's like, there's a whole world, I think, that comes with apparel and knowledge that has to be taken into consideration.
January 1st, 2023, you hit your 1 year mark for vending, but you said that you regretted not taking more pictures.
Yeah.
Do you now make a conscious effort to take more pictures and document your journey?
Yeah, that's one thing I struggle with so much, like I mentioned earlier. Oh, I painted X and Y, but I didn't ever take a picture of it, and now it's like out there in the world. Especially with vending, it's really hard to keep that in mind, like content, you should be doing this when you're like, have a bajillion other things to do. So I feel like I have it pretty set where I set up my table, and I'm like, okay, picture time for Instagram, and I'll take a picture. But what does suck about that is like I'm never in them, so I feel like when sometimes like events want promo pictures of you, I never have any of myself because I'm always vending by myself. It's really hard to keep this constant content mindset in while you're doing. I still have that when I'm even at home by myself doing art. Like, oh, I finished a whole project, maybe I should have taken a video or a picture at some point during that process. I feel like it's just a thing to keep in mind, and it gets easier over time.
2023, you started rolling out a bunch of new products in quick succession. In February, you teased a line of your Mystery Critter Season 1 with the picture of the dog in a jacket sticker.
Mm-hmm.
And then you fully released the blind bags April 2nd, 2023 at the Davis Craft and Vintage Fair.
Mm-hmm.
April 12, 2023, you released your line of notepads with weekly planners and to-do lists. May 3rd, 2023, you released the sun catcher. Quick question on the sun catchers.
Mm-hmm.
Were they just the limited run product, or will those make a return?
Yeah, I hope to bring them back one day. They were pretty labor intensive to kind of cut out each tiny piece because it was made up of tiny pieces of vinyl. I still have like a drawer full of all the materials. I'm just waiting for maybe the motivation to come back. That's something I struggle with, is the motivation for certain things. But hopefully one day it'll come back.
I know I still have mine on my window, the little teapot with the ghost in it.
Dude, love that.
July 18th, 2023, you released the yarn sprouts that double as a bookmark or a cool decoration for your headphones.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've been most excited for July 31st, 2023. That's when you released your little felt desk pets.
Yeah.
One thing that I liked is that you released it with the little personality cards on your post for each of the different types of pets.
Yeah.
The 3 types: ghost type, frog type, moss type.
Mm-hmm.
Were there originally 4 types, or am I remembering that wrong?
I want to say there's always been 3. Yeah, officially. Maybe there was like a couple little random little guys thrown in there, but I think officially there's always been 3.
November 26, 2023, you released, is it called washi tape?
Yeah.
What are washi tapes?
It's like special printed tapes with little designs that people mostly use for journaling or scrapbooking and such. I don't know where the name washi tape came from, but yeah.
December 8th, 2023, you released your wood-burned earrings. So releasing all these different products how do I phrase this? Because they're all very different types of products.
Yeah.
Do you decide more so what you want to create based off of things that you see other vendors selling or things that you've encountered that you're excited to try to sell?
It is all very chaotic. I feel like it doesn't seem to like fit together necessarily. I feel like it's a little bit of both. I think I take a lot of inspiration and joy seeing like what other people create, especially like that's a big part of the job is vending and when you're talking to other people. I have never felt more inspired than like having a conversation with another creator and stuff and seeing what they're doing and learning a new craft. I really love learning something new. And I feel like in my own art business, what I really enjoy is kind of creating like almost a whole world, kind of. Again, when I was younger, I would read a ton. So this idea of having, I don't know, I don't like to say the word like brand, but like a business that kind of encapsulates this whole little world is very intriguing and enticing. And I love learning new mediums to kind of explore that idea. So I think that's where a lot of it comes from. And yeah, like you said, the excitement of one day just like seeing something, or honestly like the need for something. I think with the notepads and the washi tape, I was like, I would really love a notepad. And you know what? I can make that myself, which is really cool. So I would just go ahead and do it. Same with like the little crochet sprouts. I was like, I saw that online and was like, how cool. Like, I want to do that and make one for my own headphones. And you can also use that as a bookmark. Amazing. And so a lot of what I do comes out of my own personal need, I guess, and want of just like seeing something out there and being like, wow, I could really use something like that for myself. And then I think it really connects with people. So then I just have it at my booth as well.
And then something big happened in 2024. That was when you were the featured artist at the Secret Spot.
Mm-hmm.
You were in the Superstar Suite alongside other local artists, BB Mad Designs.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like having your art highlighted in the studio?
Yeah, that was really cool. That was honestly one of my goals for 2024. I try not to I'm not a super goal or oriented person. At the start of 2024, there was a small list of things that I wanted to accomplish that I wasn't going to hold myself too much to, but just like things to keep in mind as I move through the year. And that having a space to showcase my art was one of the goals. So it was pretty incredible to have that happen. And I think it all worked out like beautifully with Madison's stuff. Everything looked so amazing. And the Secret Spot is such a great place to allow artists the opportunity to do that. And it's such an amazing part of the community. So yeah, it was pretty great.
There are a few festivals and farmers markets that you are a regular vendor for.
Mm-hmm.
Some examples are the Davis Cherry Blossom Festival, Whole Earth Festival, Davis Craft and Vintage, and the Midtown Farmers Market.
Mm-hmm.
What is the application process for someone who has never vended looking to start vending?
It's a bit different for each one. Usually my advice for people on step one, which is how to find these applications in these markets, is to usually once you find one, more will follow. Or if you find a artist, like if you follow me, I always post about these things, and then you follow those pages, like the Whole Earth page or the Cherry Blossom page, then you'll find when they put out their applications, because it's different for every market, but usually like month or two in advance is when they'll put out the applications. Sometimes it's a bit longer, but so once you find those applications, I'd say it's pretty easy to fill out. Sometimes there's a waiting list, which can be hard, so I recommend trying to be up to date as quickly as you can. Usually it's pretty straightforward. You'll need all your business licenses for the city that you want to do business in, which is pretty easy and accessible. There's a lot of help out there to look up if you're confused about that. I know it can be pretty overwhelming, but other than that, once you have that, it's usually just photos of your setup if you've ever done these kind of things before, why you want to be vending at this place, like what drew you to the specific market, And usually, like, what can you bring to the table that's like a little bit different than others? And that's pretty much it.
And then when it comes to pricing your art, what are some of the things that you consider when putting a price tag to your art?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are a lot of factors, the most important being most people kind of tend to leave out of the equation is how much time you spent on making the certain thing, which would be a lot. All the thinking and designing to the actual, if you're like maybe outsourcing the product or your materials cost, all of that needs to be taken into account. But then there are things that I personally take into consideration, which is like the outside factors, like on the market. I do to get a ballpark because it can feel pretty overwhelming. Like, how much do I charge for this? I look at maybe others in my space or like quick little Google search on Etsy, like how much would a sticker be going for? Or like, and then you can tweak it to your own personal specifics of how much it took you to do. But there's always wiggle room, I'd say. And then a last little tip I'd like to throw on there is, for the most part, probably tack on a little bit more because you're underselling yourself. Everybody, I think in the beginning especially, undersells themselves. So if you just like tack on a little bit more at the end, I think everybody is deserving of that usually.
Thank you for being a guest here on the What's in Your Case podcast. Do you have anything you'd like to promote or tell the listeners where they can see your content?
Every weekend, every Saturday, I'm at the Midtown Farmers Market in Sacramento. And other than that, twice a month, the first Sunday and the third Sunday, I'm at Davis Craft and Vintage, usually vending my stuff. Other than that, I'm always online at Mal.Inky, usually on Instagram. I always post the bigger festivals that come up during the year. But yeah, thanks for having me.